Roberts can double his horses, but he can't double the fodder to feed them.
Effectively, it meant starving the horses to death. In the course of the war, the British Army got through about 500,000 horses. 2/3 of them died from starvation and from maltreatment.
February the 11th, 1900, Roberts begins his march on the Boer capitals. His plan of attack depends on mounted infantry who can outride and outflank the Boers before dismounting to engage them. Within 7 days, Roberts' swift-moving columns surround an army of 4,000 at Paardeberg. After a terrible bombardment, the Boers surrender. It's Britain's first real victory and a turning point in the war. The Boer general is literally carted off the battlefield, a perfect photo opportunity.
Roberts was extremely good at manipulating the press, both by denying them access to communications and by promoting the careers of those who he felt could help him. If newspapermen wished to write up reports and wanted to use the military telegraph to transmit them back, they must submit them for censorship. Roberts could influence the way the press reported his campaigns simply by exercising this kind of control.
I think the military learned very early on that it was quite important to control the type of material that was coming back. But they were also quite keen for certain events to be filmed. And you think of things like the relief of Ladysmith.
William Dixon, 7th of March, 1900. It was a gala day. The beleaguered Gorton Highlanders welcomed the relief column headed by General Buller.
Buller relieves Ladysmith at last. But Buller is old news. Most of the media are covering Roberts' advance. To maintain his army's momentum, Roberts neglects logistics. Parched by the African sun and poorly supplied, his troops drink water from the river Modder.
The river runs straight through the battlefield, with all the dead horses, oxen, and human bodies in the river. And that started the great dysentery epidemic, which killed even more British troops than the Battle of Paardeberg.
22,000 British soldiers will die in the war, 16,000 of disease. A doctor-turned-writer, Arthur Conan Doyle, is serving as a volunteer with the Medical Corps.
We lived in the midst of death, and death in its vilest, filthiest form. The common soldier may grouse in days of peace, but I never heard a murmur when he was faced with this loathsome death. The news was softened down for public consumption, and the press messages were heavily censored.
So Roberts' reputation remains intact. He resumes his Transvaal offensive. Thousands of men and horses sweep across the veldt. The epidemic is over. Time for some good news.
Roberts' concern with publicity was so great that on one occasion, when the cavalry division under General French had actually captured the town of Kronstadt, Roberts issued orders that French would have to withdraw from Kronstadt.
The troops were held back outside the town to allow the press corps in first to set up their cameras so the triumphal entry could actually be filmed.
Roberts could come forward and officially capture it himself for the benefit of the photographers, the newspapermen, and the cine cameramen.
When he got to Bloemfontein, Roberts organised a dinner for the press. He gave a speech and said how much he admired what they did and that they were brothers in arms.
Everybody played the press. Successful commanders of the 20th century, of democratic countries, have been people who have understood this relationship they must have with public opinion and with politics.
The two Boer republics are made colonies of the British Empire.
William Dixon. The flag was unfurled, cheer after cheer rending the air. Thanks to the biograph which faithfully recorded this magnificent scene, the people of the world will see what it saw and doubtless sing, God Save the Queen.
The war is over, so it seems. Troops come marching home. Cameramen, reporters and photographers are reassigned.
Roberts is able to announce that he has won his campaign, and on the strength of this, the government calls in October 1900 what is known as the Khaki election and is returned to power. Everybody announces a victory. Unfortunately, the enemy don't quite see it that way.
World Timeline will continue in a moment.
These poor women and children who'd been left struggling on the veldt had been put into refugee camps where they were looked after by the British, and they were extremely grateful for it.
Emily Hobhouse, a vicar's daughter, travels to South Africa to see conditions for herself.